Hello, and today we'll be learning about the evaluation of reference sources. So now that we know what our reference sources are, the encyclopedia, dictionary, and many more, we will now be evaluating them. Okay, so why do we need to evaluate our references? Okay, so pause on this point for a bit and ask yourself, why do we need to evaluate them? Okay, you're done. So we evaluate because we want to provide quality service. So we reference librarians have a variety of services, and providing quality materials is essential for our services to have quality results. So our patrons are satisfied that the resources they are able to use are the best or fit to their needs. So we have to select them carefully using a criteria. Okay, so the criteria we have, there are eight parts. There are eight parts. First, we have the format, scope, relation to similar works, authority, treatment, arrangement, special features, and cost. So we'll be discussing them individually. Okay, so now we go to the first criteria, the format. Goes, so this is the print, microform, electronic, physical makeup, and also the illustrations. So for the book, the features of the book are what you should look for. So the binding, paper, typeface, and layout. So you have to know the quality and the durability of the binding and the paper. And for the look of the book, so look at the typeface and the layout. Is it readable? Is it presentable? And also if it has illustrations, so check for the quality and relation of the images to the text. So for quality, check if it's not too pixelated, if the pictures are clear, and see if the content of the book relates to the pictures that they are including in its book. Now we also have the scope. Okay, so for the scope, this is the one indication of the scope is the statement of the purpose. So this is generally found in the preface or the preliminary pages of the book. Okay, so scope mostly focuses on purpose, coverage, and currency. So also see what is the extent of the information that is presented. So you have to relate the content or the information it provides to your users. So is the information too simple or too basic for your college students that that the book is actually intended for the high school or maybe the elementary? Or is it too high? Is the information too complex or too complicated for college students? So it was actually intended for graduate students. Also to consider the geographical coverage. So is the content or the practices that were stated in the book for American standards or foreign standards, or are they standards that are related or patterned to our country? So that can easily be identified in the publisher also. So is it a local publisher or international publisher? And also the time. So as stated here, we have the currency. So the time period of the information coverage so is also important. Are the contents current? Are they old information? Okay, so it will also depend on the type of subject you have. History, books. Oh, of course, you will need old. It's fine if you have old resources. And then when you have the sciences, there are many developments in IT and the sciences, so you have to get the most current publishers or publications. Now we're at the third criteria, which is relation to similar works. Okay, so this talks about uniqueness, spin-offs, and new editions. Okay, so we have here some guide questions when assessing for similar works. Okay, so first, before buying new editions, do you have a copy of the old ones? And what's new in the recent edition? Is the existing book already talking about this topic? Do their topics overlap? Are they intended for a different audience? And also, are there any spin-offs? Okay, so let's tackle the first one. Okay, so as a librarian, let's imagine you are already a librarian. and you already have general reference sources in your collection, but you want to buy a new book, so you have to consider these questions when assessing a new title, because it would be a waste to buy a new edition of a title that is already held in your library. Okay, also, you can buy a new edition though. Just assess the extent of the revisions made in the new edition. Okay, so what's new in this current book that would supplement what the old edition or old books does not have? So in which part is this new edition unique from the old one? Alright, so another thing to consider is when you're comparing two different books. They are not old and new editions, they are just two different titles, but they have the similar, or they talk about the similar topic or same scope. Okay, so for example, two science books. Now ask yourself, what is the extent of the contents in this book? What is the extent of the overlapping of scope or contents with the other one? So how much of the information is unique? Is there an overlap in content? Is information more easily found in the new source? Is it written for a different audience? So is the new source better? Is the other source better? Is it easier to understand compared to the second book that is more technical, more higher level of understanding is needed? And also, is it written for a different audience? So is one book written for, let's say, high school, elementary? Is it simplified because of its audience? And is the second book written for college, graduate, or postgraduate students, the masters and the PhDs? So you have to consider that also. Okay, so now let's go on to the spin-offs. So I want to explain the spin-offs. This is when the publisher creates a new book. Okay, but the information is already available in existing collections. But it is compressed or summarized, or maybe even selected information is provided only in the spin-offs. Okay, so for example, a reference book publisher may issue a spin-off from a larger set, or a multi-volume set. Like for example, if we had there is a one-volume physics encyclopedia. Okay, so all of the information there, the articles, they were selected or picked out from the multi-volume encyclopedia of science. So science is a very big or broad subject. So when they made the spin-off for the physics encyclopedia, they only took out the parts that are physics. So it's compressed. There's lesser information, but it's all about the physics. So the biology, the maths, the earth sciences were taken out, leaving only the physics. Okay, so if you decide to buy the one-volume encyclopedia, you can buy it if you do not have the multi-volume or the original set for the science multi-volume encyclopedia, because you need the information. It is unique information. It is not existing in your collection. But let's say your library already has the multi-volume encyclopedia of science, buying it would be redundant because you have two resources talking about the same thing. So do not buy a single volume set. So you will not buy the single volume set anymore, just the multi-volume set. Okay, so now we have the authority. So in authority, you identify the authorship, publisher or sponsor, and the sources of information. So indicators for this are the authorities. The authorities include the education and experience of the editors and the contributors. Also, their degrees earned, so what did they graduate from, their specialization, and also the organizations that they are affiliated with. Okay, so the reputation of the publisher should also be considered because some publishers are very well known for making quality books, quality information, or are known for making the best sources for a specific subject. So also consider that well-known publishers may be expensive also. Now we have treatment. Okay, so in treatment, you will identify the accuracy, objectivity, and style and audience. Okay, so how reliable are the facts presented? Are there misspelled words, missing data elements, or inconsistent formatting of parts of the record such as author names? Okay, so you can determine who can best use the work. So which audience is it for? So is it for the layperson or for the scholar? Is it for adults or is it for children? Also assess the quality and accuracy of the writing. So as stated here, the misspelled words and missing data elements. So there may be missing charts or the charts, graphs, or tables are missing some elements or important data. Okay, now we have the arrangement. So this is in the sequencing of the information and also the index or the indexing. Alright, so print and microfilm sources arrange entries in a particular sequence. So for example, in alphabetical, chronological, depending on their time or currency, and also they are classified by subject. Okay, so the most well-known or the most used by users is alphabetical because it is the easiest and also it is the most common, so they've used it before. Alright, so that was for the sequence of the information. It could be alphabetical, chronological, or classified. Now for the index. Okay, so the index, as you all know, can be found at the back of the book. Okay, so this is one part of the book that is found at the back that lists all of the topics found inside of the book. So it's different from the table of contents. So how is it arranged also? Do you have two indexes, one for subject, one for author, and one for maybe titles of the references? Is it in alphabetical order? Most indexes, though, are in alphabetical order. Now we have special features. Okay, so in a book or a research material, one thing that pushes a librarian to buy that material is what is the added or free materials that come with the bought resources. So is there a CD? Is there a companion audio, PDF, or links that will access to a website or access to a database? So these access or free access to electronic resources, documentations or training, and also customer support. Most web resources use hyperlinks, so there are links that you just click and it will send you to a web resource or an online resource. And lastly, we have the cost. So cost is the price and the licensing conditions. Okay, so pricing of online databases follow a variety of models, from a charge per use to subscription with unlimited access for authorized users. Okay, so we'll focus more on the databases or the online resources. So for databases, pricing will depend on the size of the potential users or how many users, what is the population of the users that could use that database. And also in comparison with print resources, which is pricier. Having multiple users use one resource or one title of a resource for an expensive database, or buying one book that only one person can use at a time, but it's a little cheaper. So that's what you have to consider. Most databases are pricier, but that is the advantage. Many people can use them. Also, when it comes to databases, you can have a lesser price if you avail or if there is a consortium of the database compared to buying a database individually. Alright, so that was the criteria for evaluating reference sources. Okay, so let's go to the selection aids. Okay, so these selection aids are also reference sources. So these are tools that assist the reference librarian in evaluating sources for possible inclusion in the library's reference collections. So there are examples, review sources, and guide to reference sources. Okay, so these are a number of tools that are available to assist the librarian in evaluating sources before acquiring them. So before they are included into the library's collection. So review sources offer critical reviews of newly published titles. So they are a way for librarians to review sources without reading or acquiring the books yet. So they may be updated or published in a frequency of semi-monthly or annually. Or how many times in a month or in a year are they published? So these can be considered as serials also. So these guides are very valuable to us as librarians because they aid us in identifying likely sources to help us in answering the reference questions. Alright, now for the disadvantages of reviewing sources. The more thorough the review, the longer the time lag. So the one difficulty for reviews is the time lag in the appearance or the publishing of the reviews that follow the publication of the reference work. The frequency of publication of reviewing sources also influence the time lag. So the longer the review takes, the longer the publishing or the review source will be to publish. Okay, so generally the more thorough the review, the longer time lag. That would mean that, let's say, a review for a dictionary that is published in 2020, published this year, it's very thorough, it's a very good review, was actually for a dictionary that was published last 2015. So if it's very thorough, it's a very lengthy review. The lag for a publication for a dictionary that has been existing for 5 years just now got a review. That is the lag for reviewing sources. Now we have another selection aid. So this is called Guide to Reference Sources. So this is different from the reviewing sources. So these are used to identify gaps in existing collections. It aids in identifying likely sources for answering particular reference questions and serve dual purposes. So this is a collection evaluation checklist and selection tool for reference and collection development librarians, and as aids in reference work to identify appropriate reference sources to use in reference questions. So this is more of a list of references, a list of the references available that could be used for answering particular questions or for a field of knowledge. So if you have let's say a guide to reference sources now, and you have checked there all of the books, they are complete in your library, then you have a very strong collection because it is in the guide to reference sources. So we have an example here, guide to reference book. Okay, so that is all for the evaluation of reference sources.